somebody desperately wanted to be in this video. So a couple of years ago, I started learning about barefoot shoes and the barefoot lifestyle, which is kind of not that out there in New Zealand. There are plenty of people that walk around barefoot all the time. And I remember when I was at high school, there were entire days where the only time I would wear shoes was for chemistry class. Probably days I had no chemistry, I just didn't even take any. And that would be sandals, which is, I don't know what the point was, but anyway. So I had already been trying to wear shoes that were as close to zero drop as possible. I've always hated heels, and also with plenty of space for my toes. But then I discovered the barefoot shoes, which are very interesting, but also very expensive. So I did quite want some. And me being me, I thought, well, I'm sure I can make them. Of course I can make them. Do I regret this? No, not entirely. I love the shoes that I've made. But it's difficult. It's been a really big learning curve. Everything is hand stitched, which is fine. It takes a really long time, and there's lots and lots of trial and error and messing around, which isn't, like, I enjoy that to a degree, but it can be really, really too much sometimes, you know, when you just want the thing. Yeah, anyway, I did a bit of research. Yes, Papa. And eventually I came across a website called earthingmoccasins.com, which is run by a lovely French couple. At least I assume they're lovely. They seem very lovely from the interactions I've had with them. And they speak very good English, so don't worry about that. And they basically, like, they focus on moccasin style shoes, but they also have some sandals. And I thought I would buy myself a birthday present of a kit from them, because they put together these wonderful kits that have everything you need for the project. So, well, you can get different levels, but I chose the one that had the leather and the soling, and the leather is so nice. It's just, oh, not actually for eating, but you know. And then, like, really good scissors, needles, just everything you would need, which was really helpful because it can be very difficult to source things in New Zealand. Being at the bottom of the world, you know, we don't have the whole Amazon option like most people do. Shipping was a bit of a, I think it was about $70 on top of the maybe $3.50 that the kit was. Oh my days, Nash is dying. But the whole thing, well, I thought it was completely worth it to get a pair of bespoke leather boots, and also a whole lot of knowledge that would be extremely useful for future, I was going to say future generations, future iterations, makes more sense. Did I mention they also do like full-on video tutorials, which is really helpful. I've just realised my glasses are being reflecty. Sorry. We'll just take those off. So I did quite a bit of experimenting with some felt with this whole kit and tutorial situation, and I eventually managed to squeeze out a pair of little low ankle boots of my own design, using their principles, but adapting it to my taste. And I love them. I wear them heaps. They're extremely comfortable, like so comfortable. I forget I'm wearing them. They're like wearing slippers, only they actually stay on your foot. And I lined them with felt as well, so they're really warm. And the following winter, I made some knee-high boots. I think they need a bit of adjusting at the moment, but yeah. Oh, sweet puppy dog. This one. Isn't it? I've also made some running shoe style, like lace-up ones. They just have a leather sole, and I actually made them for dancing because my husband and I started doing ballroom and Latin dancing. Of course, they're not the traditional shoe for that at all because they have no heel in any way, shape or form, but I really like waltzing in them. Like cha-cha and stuff is sometimes a bit tricky, but like waltzing is just so, it's very nice. very slidey, very glidey. But what we're going to talk about today, or what you're going to see today, is in fact sandals. So I did actually also get a sandal kit from Earthing Moccasins, and I am yet to make those work for me. But I've also made a couple of my own design, and I will briefly introduce you to, well, all three pairs. Well, the first two pairs, and then show you how I made the third pair, which is the one I live in all the time. Without further ado,
so I've made these sandals. You can find out how at earthingmoccasins.com. I tried a couple of different lacing thingies. So this is paracord, this is cotton tape, because I was finding this part really uncomfortable, but this is actually even less comfortable. Don't know why. So I'm going to see if I can figure out a way of raising that without putting it somehow backwards so that it's a bit more comfortable. Not too sure how I'm going to do it, but I guess we'll find out. I've also made these ones, so these are my own design. These ones are similar principles but done in a different way, using the huaraches kind of idea. I think that's how you pronounce it. But the other day, so this is just cotton tape, one of them just snapped, which is kind of annoying. Also, it's pulling, especially on this one, I think because it's laced, I inadvertently laced differently there. So they're pretty good, but they're not perfect. And they keep needing to be adjusted. I keep having to retie that, which isn't the biggest deal, but gets a bit annoying after a while. So I'm actually going to make a second pair because they're surprisingly easy to make and they're surprisingly dirty. That's gross. But instead of this and loops, I'm going to make leather straps. So my one thing that I'm like about is this part here needs to be reasonably tight to hold my toe in place, but it needs to be loose enough that the fat part of my toe can get through. So that's going to cause some thinking. I'm going to need straps that come up here to hold things in place. I've discovered this actually needs to be reasonably high to stay up enough at the back. That's really annoying otherwise because it just slips down. I might do a different style at the back so it's kind of cut like this, and then you sew that part up. Probably borrow that to do some shaping there so that they can be sewn at the back, so this is kind of shaped better, not just a funny flappy thing. Will stand up better, and it will be like till about here probably, so come up, so it's like a little proper little shoelet at the back of my sandal. We'll see how that works. Yeah, and then we'll figure things out as we go along. So I'm going to make the pattern from scratch.
So I cleverly ran out of battery or some storage or something just before. Yeah. And now there's loud vacuuming happening, which makes me happy because yay, my kids are cleaning the house and meh, annoying. Anyway, so I've ended up adding some bits. I think it's roughly okay. This part will need to be trimmed. But I'm going to cut one out and I'm going to trace the other one, but not cut it out yet because I might adjust it before I cut it out. So I'm going to do that and then see how we go from there. Probably not going to be that fun to watch, so I probably won't bother filming this part and we'll see what happens next. Okay, we're making progress. My voice is being weird again. So I've put the toe piece on. Now I'm going to make the slits for the crossy piecey bit. Actually, let's put the lid on the scalpel because it's really, really sharp and I like my toes. Something like that. Feeling nervous about cutting this. Okay. Such a fishy situation. Okay, well, I'm going to sew that up. No, first I'm going to trace that onto here. Alright. I'm also going to pull these all out and remark exactly where I've ended up making the lines, the holes. You don't need to see me sewing this up, so I'm not going to show you. Okay, so I've made some progress with a sandal. Got two of them. This one is not quite sewn up because I somehow underestimated how much thread I was going to use, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. I'm going to need a little bit extra to sew on this thing anyway, so yeah, I'll just use it for that. Get some or something. I'll figure it out. Is it exactly the same as the other one? I haven't actually checked that yet. Let's look. Starting from the bottom. Oh my gosh. Sit flat. Yeah. So that's somehow slightly higher. Maybe I cut it funny. I'm not sure. I've already re-sewn it once because I thought I started funny. Possibly my spacing of holes was slightly off. I'm not sure. So I'll just trim that. So what I've ended up doing for the ankle piece, and boy is this horrible to try and sew on. Seemed like a really good idea at the time. Yeah, I have many questions about how secure all of this is. Time will tell. So I actually used some thin leather that I've got. The stuff, which is nowhere near as nice. It's from David's Emporium. It's in every way inferior to this beautiful stuff, but it's a bit thinner and easier to work with and fold, etc. So because I just wanted to encase the elastic, so the elastic comes up to there, it's folded inside. Well, no, it's not folded inside, it's abutting, the two ends are abutting each other. Sounds like a goat. And then this part is folded over. I thought I had made it so it would line up really well, and it's possible that that's going to irritate my ankle. We will find out, but basically how it goes. Oh, and I've lost one of my little pieces again. Is that the right one? No. Oh, fiddlesticks, there we go. So that goes in there. That goes in there. and that goes in there. And I somehow have to grow another pair of hands to sew all of this, glue all of it together when the time is right. And the time it will be right today because it's not raining and it's quite windy, so yeah. Presumably when this has got a base, it'll be a bit easier to put on. And also, you know, when it's glued together, it won't keep coming undone. So frustrating. I'm really selling this design, aren't I? Let's just go like that and call it, yeah. I like how it looks. It's a lot classier than the ones that I have already made. I'll probably need a trim just to make that a bit evener, more evener. Is that a word? We'll see. I did discover that, yeah, that is going to bug me. That's really annoying. I might have to glue another piece of leather over all these joins and things, because otherwise it's probably going to give me a blister, or at least just be uncomfortable and irritating and make me ragey. Yeah, so this shaping is a little bit and part of that is because I very cleverly failed to take into account the fact that this leather has thickness when I was making the holes to put the slits to put the leather through, the straps through. And obviously if you add thickness that you haven't taken away for, it's going to push the other side out, so that's why it's kind of distorted. So I ended up cutting wider slits, but it's still like it's stretched out a bit, so I'll probably just trim that a bit once it's all sorted out. I've got my soles ready and they look so funny. But hey, apparently that's the shape of my foot, mostly. I did take it in a bit here extra there because like I have really high arches and I actually don't want that part glued to anything, so it can come up naturally by itself, because otherwise it's going to pull and come undone anyway. To be honest, I could have actually trimmed the leather even more like that, but I think just for sensible, taking into account the fact that I might be walking on like long grass or something with spikiness in it. I have been prickled on like the side of my foot in my other sandals, and I managed to get a rogue toothpick that was hanging out in the car. There was a reason, it doesn't need to be explained. Into the, was it this foot? I can't even remember. It was in somewhere. So a little bit of extra protection is probably not a silly idea. Yeah, so hopefully I'm going to be brave and do all the gluing today. I don't know, I'm scared. It's actually not that hard to unglue. I thought you'd need like solvents and stuff, but turns out you just have to pull it apart. Yeah, I don't know, but it is kind of nerve-wracking, especially if you don't get it quite right, you know, perfectly on point. Like you can't just kind of undo it right then. I don't know, you seem to have to wait for it to dry, and then somehow it's easier to pull apart. Yeah, so I mean they're not perfect, but and I'm hoping they'll be easier to get on and off. I don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna definitely have to put something there. I need to finish sewing this one on. Honestly, it takes like hours because it's so hard getting the needle through. I actually did I get the pliers? Definite need for some pliers to get it through at one point, although I did manage to break a needle. Not a saddlery needle, it was a really long fat-ish. I don't even know what it's supposed to be for, but yeah, that was sad. I broke the eye. It snapped off. So I've been trying to make the holes a little bigger with my awl, while trying to also not damage the thread. I don't know, why do I do these things to myself? Because I'm crazy, I suppose. Yeah. Anyway, that one's nearly sewn on, then I need to do that one, finish that bit up, trim that, sew it on, and then somehow glue everything together. See, one of my big problems with this gluing is that I want these straps to be tight, so I'm thinking maybe I should glue them before I do it in stages, before I glue it to the sole, but then it likes to kind of pull a bit upwards. I don't know, I have this fear of regret that if I don't do it really carefully, it's going to work out not what I want, and I'll be really frustrated. And see, pulling up. Maybe I need to do a little bit at a time so that that side's secure before I try and secure the other ends. Yeah, that was pulling up. Glued in stages. Sensible suggestion, thank you. Alright, so I finished the sandals. Let's try them on. So the toe thing is tighter than I expected. I'm wondering if I actually accidentally repositioned things so that it's thicker here than I originally planned it to be. Not sure. They're not as easy to get on as I'd hoped, but I mean, I'm guessing that these straps are going to stretch a bit. At least I don't have to fiddle around with, what are those things called? Buckles. Which means one-handed is doable, I think. I mean, they look pretty good. Slightly gapey over here on both of them, but this side sits really nicely. Not sure if there's anything I can do about that. I mean, I could potentially cut it and sew it like a dart, only, you know, obviously without the bulk. But can I be bothered? Probably not. I am wondering if my big toe is going to get sore if I walk in these for long periods. I was worried about having the other ends of the straps underneath the sole and that feeling weird. It feels okay. Doesn't actually bother me. I thought it might. I have one pair that I had to patch because I didn't sole them early enough. They got a little hole. Not sandals, shoes. And it bugs me. I don't like having that, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the position of where it is. So it doesn't feel entirely flat, but it's not like bad. I think I do need to just trim here. I don't like that shape. But otherwise, I don't know. Pretty happy with how I managed to glue it. There are a few bits, because it's really hard to get the glue in exactly the right place on the leather. Like, you need it everywhere that you're going to put the sole, but you don't want it where you're not going to put the sole, but it's hard to tell exactly. I did kind of trace around to try and make that accurate, but didn't get it perfect. But that's okay. I mean, the only people that are ever going to see that are the people behind me at church. Yeah. Would I do anything differently? I'm not sure. I guess I'll find out when I've worn them a bit. But now I'm happy I've got some reasonably classy sandals. I think that the one thing that I might do differently is maybe make that a little looser. I could, if it's really bugging me, I think if I actually trimmed the leather a little bit so that it's not so thick do something to make this whole area over here not quite so thick, but I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Sometimes you only really know if it's a success after wearing it for a while.